So good morning, everyone. Today is Thursday, July 9th, 2020. Time is 10:05 a.m. And this is, we're continuing our, if you want to call it budget workshop, deliberations, whatever. It is a special meeting. It will be led by our auditor, Dina Darrow, and also Michelle joining her as well. Attending are Commissioners Duncan, Brooks, and Filios. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. This is the next to the last meeting, right? Our last meeting and deadline is July 17th. Is that correct?
That is correct. So what we're looking at now is today we're just getting together to give you a status and give you the opportunity to do some deliberations. Next Wednesday, we'll have Alliance come in and give us our final numbers for healthcare costs and increases. And then the 16th, I believe. Yeah, we moved that last meeting to the 16th Thursday. That'll be your final last chance deliberations to make changes. So thank you, commissioners, for giving us this extra meeting to just get together and talk through. We have groups here to talk about their particular asks and the status. So I wanted to give you an update. We ran through all of the personnel changes in position budgeting for pay period 14. So those changes are in. Thanks to HR and the Sheriff's Office for working with us to get those numbers nailed down as far as open positions and where we are with those. So I think we have a good, solid list of status on those. So today, basically our overage is driven by personnel. So that will be the discussion for today. And also wanted to let you know, Michelle made me aware, the governor did do an executive order on the 7th talking about cutting revenue by 5% in the state's budgets. I don't know how that's going to affect us, but there's going to be a webinar on the 22nd, which is kind of after the fact, but we will be monitoring that. We did do pretty conservative estimates for state-based revenue, so given that we don't have any better information, we left those as they are for now. We will get final word from the treasurer next week on his projections for investment income. Right now in the budget, we have his most rosy prediction plugged in.
And that is how much, do you know?
I believe it's right around $1.5 million.
Okay.
But I can verify that.
Okay.
But that number could change. So that said, I wanted to give you just a couple of views here. Let's go to the preliminary summary first, since that's what we're most familiar with. So right now, after all the changes have been run through for personnel for pay period 14, you have a deficit of $353,486. We do have some open positions marked that could possibly be shut down. That would give you 210, putting your deficit at about 142. I have that list of positions and I will bring that up. We also have on the table the COLA and new positions that could possibly be cut. There's more than enough in the new positions also to balance this. So I will bring up those items so that you can review those and then begin your deliberations. So right now, this is what's left as far as new costs to personnel. These are the positions that have survived the first round of cuts. And then this second half is all the changes, overtime increases, bonuses, grade changes, that sort of thing. I've marked solid waste in gray because they are self-funded. So if we were to cut those, they wouldn't affect your deficit. And so there's your 1.4, of which general government is 1.3, about 1.3. So if we go back to the agenda.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I wanted to give you a quick update on our assigned fund balance usage, just so you have an idea. So around April, you approved the assigned fund balance, of which we've applied some of that assigned fund balance to capital projects. So right now in this budget, you have proposed to use about 1.3 million in assigned fund balance to fund capital projects, which still leaves you a healthy remaining balance of about 12.1 million.
Consider that healthy.
Very healthy, yes. Some budgets I've seen almost 10 million of usage, and that's not including the jail. So this is a very judicious use of assigned fund balance. So I wanted to give you that snapshot because this is pretty key in fiscal responsibility. So kudos to you there.
I have a question about
Sure.
the IT versus the camera systems and replacements. I seem to remember us taking the whole 450 for JJC and jail.
So all of the IT-related projects are just lumped together here just
Okay.
for simplicity. These
Okay.
are jail-specific. So I put them separate because they would come out of the Justice Fund. But I do have that detail in the capital summary.
Okay.
Okay.
So wouldn't JJC come out of Justice Fund as well?
Not necessarily. It would be in Fund 11, which is this big section in the middle.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So open positions. So I've highlighted these and color-coded them. So the ones that are already frozen are in orange. The open positions that are highlighted in green have already been hired.
Okay.
And these are grant funded, so they're kind of off the table. So the ones in yellow are ones that could possibly be frozen. That add up to about that 210. And I know that there's been some back and forth, and there are people in backgrounds here. These have not been hired, but that's the value of those positions. This position was retired. I think there's one more down here. Maybe not. Yep, there's one more. So there is this one also that's still open that could possibly be drawn upon. But those are basically your 4 positions that are part of the open positions for discussion, and the sheriff is here to talk to you about the status of those open positions and if it would make sense to freeze any of those for this upcoming fiscal year.
Okay.
And that basically is what you have to work with.
Okay.
Pretty much trim the B budget down based on what we presented last time. I'll just crack this open. So these were areas where we had looked to do some cuts, but basically the biggest cuts were already taken. So when we broke this down by commissioner, Commissioner Brooks had indicated that he was willing to give up any new positions, and Commissioner Duncan said that she would be willing to give up the 1.8% COLA. So Commissioner Brooks' choice would put you at a $216,000 surplus, and Commissioner Duncan's choice would put you at a $321.9 thousand surplus. And then Chris, basically the choices that were made that actually went through that had a 2 or better vote puts you at the same, puts us at our current status. So this number represents those open positions marked in yellow that I just showed you, which would put you at this deficit if those were closed. So do you have any questions, or do we want to open the floor for deliberations or perhaps feedback from the sheriff?
Thoughts?
I'd like to hear from the sheriff's department.
Dan, please.
Thank you, Commissioners. So I want to hearken back to when the sheriff presented a week and a half or 2 weeks ago And I believe that a good part of the $210,000 that's represented up there as the possible positions that could be frozen were offered up in good faith by the sheriff, and I'll use his words, not mine, that it was going to come out of our hide with the idea in mind that we're going to try to fund the matrices. You know, and I'll just be right up front. My goal here is to do what we can do to fund the matrix and all of our matrices. And with that in mind, I got to say that, you know, we hire people, we recruit people, we advertise that you come to work here, you're going to move through this pay plan. We advertise it, it's clear, and it's not showing good faith to the employees that are existing here now not to fund it, but it's equally not fair to the people that are looking to come to work here and not abide by what we say we're going to do. So I get the fact that we're in a tough place right now. We don't really even, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't even know what revenues are going to be. Is that correct?
Well, I think Dina just spoke to that earlier.
Okay. In fairness, I know we're uncertain times. So if I was coming to you and saying, I think it would be unfair for me to come to the board and say, look, I want you to raise taxes solely just to fund the matrix. I would, by the way. You probably know me well enough. But with that having been said, I just think that what we're asking here in terms of trying to fund the matrices is indeed coming out of our own hide. And that $210,000 that's represented there, we could catch the matrices up both years that we're behind for the tune of $185,000. Now, we offered that up to give those positions up to fund those matrices. And what I see happening now is that the board is taking a look at those as a mechanism to balance the entire county's budget.
Okay, so when you talk about 185,000, are you also referring to those that are currently in background?
I'm talking about the current people that we have in our matrices to fund that matrix and make it where it should be. It's going to cost $185,000. Is
Okay.
that correct, Dina? Roughly.
Yeah, and that was the figure.
That's without a COLA.
That's without a
That's
COLA.
without a COLA. Okay, so let me get down to some brass tacks here. We might be able to save some time. And this was discussed the other day. I think you met with Sylvia and Nancy, right?
I did.
Okay, so we've got $600,000 of overtime in the budget. There's good reason to believe we don't need that much. We don't need anywhere near that much with the number of people in background and the potential hiring. We can take that down, I think, comfortably without pushing it to about 250.
Well, the numbers that I have suggest that we're funded in the current budget year in an unloaded amount for $340,000 right now in fiscal year 20. And I believe that the ask, or what's on the table right now, is right in the 725 category. Is that right, Dina? Give or take a couple bucks.
So the loaded amount is 625 plus your other departments. So, but that's the big one. That's the jail.
That's the jail.
Okay, so now, John, you had 7 1/4, or?
I think the 625 is the increase over two.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So 215 is the static amount, and then every year there's an increase. So that's the increase over 215 loaded.
So once we go through our numbers, what we come up with is about 46 left over. Does that sound right, Dina?
It sounds about right for the.
Well, close enough. So we got about $486,000 on the table with the overtime, and I don't know, what was your number again, Chris?
I was saying, I was starting with the figure of 600,000, and I was saying we could comfortably take that down to 250. So we'd be saving 350,000.
Okay. So my question to the board is, in fairness, and in fairness to the employees that exist, and in fairness to the employees that are going to come to work for us with a covenant, so to speak, that this is what we're going to do for them once we hire them, what is it going to take to fund the matrices?
Well, let's
We're
run.
willing to work with the board.
So the question, I'm going to broaden your question. You want your matrix funded, you're looking out for your people, and rightfully so, but I'm looking out for everyone.
Understood.
Okay.
This is coming out of our budget, Commissioner, and it's out of money that's already existing. We're not taxing anybody, if my understanding, to
Well,
get to where we're at.
it's your budget, but it's really our budget.
Well,
Okay. But anyway, that's okay.
Understood. You're smiling anyway.
I'm always
So far,
smiling
you're-
with you, you
I
know that.
I know.
Anyway, okay,
Bill's smiling. All I gotta do is get Leslie smiling, and we'll be in good shape.
okay, cool. Anyway, so, do you want to try running that? So what are we looking at?
I
Let's
gotta
get on the
comment
same
one-
page. Go ahead.
I gotta get one other thing in, so it's clear, okay? 1.8, they call a cost of living adjustment, that's what it is. What was $1 was worth last year, it's worth less this year, and we're adjusting, it's COLA, cost of living.
But let's, keep going.
Let me finish up,
Yeah,
because
go ahead.
I'll lose my train of thought. So the rising tide should raise all ships. And so if we give a 1.8% cost of living, that should raise the wages to compensate for inflation. The steps should move in addition to that. So, I mean, I already, in fairness, I talked to Nancy, I talked to Sylvia, and basically what I heard out of that was, and I understand completely, be careful, I'm just being honest, full disclosure, be careful what you say to the board, because they're gonna tell you it's gonna be one or the other, and I'm gonna make my case that that's not the way it should be. That's not the way a COLA is designed, and that's not the way those steps were designed. So I'll stop there.
Okay. So, Dean, are you going to run some numbers?
Yes. I'm gonna decrease the loaded amount of the sheriff's overtime in the jail by half. Okay, so what I've done here is I've added in the matrix steps according to the schedule that we have from Nancy.
But that's just not COLA, that's just the steps, is that correct?
That's just the matrix steps. This COLA amount that's sitting here includes law enforcement. This
Okay.
is everyone.
That's everyone.
So this includes the steps that Dan just talked about. So here's our new deficit. This would be the amount of half of the jail overtime taken out. I'm just taking a high-level swath of 50% because we know that this is a loaded figure, so that's probably more down in the 250 that you were talking about, Chris. So again, we're just estimating here. So if we take this, so that puts us at 226 over if we ignore the open positions. Those are also the sheriff's positions. So even if he were to give those up, yeah, we'd still be over a little bit, but it's pretty immaterial. So this amount would be the number to balance.
That's with the matrices left in.
That's with the matrices left in, but you'd be giving up those open positions as well as half of your overtime.
Are you talking half of the increase to the overtime?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, half of the
Half
increase.
of the increase to
Right.
the overtime.
Right.
And that's the loaded
And
figure.
the COLA would still be
The
included.
COLA would be included for everyone.
And I'm going to pause here for a moment. Sylvia or Nancy, do you wish to speak? This is your time, guys. You won't take the hits, I'll take them. Dan likes beating up on me anyway.
I'll be back, trust me.
And Dan, we've had great conversations, and we know where we both stand in this place. And as I've professed since I've got here, I have to advocate for all 839 employees, not just the sheriff's office, but I have respect for them fighting for their own. So I would like to see if we're going to give matrix and the COLA to the sheriff's office, that we consider the COLA and some progression in the pay plan for the others, the general pay plan employees as well.
Say that again. So if we give them,
If we give a matrix and cost of living.
and a COLA, yeah?
Because that's making them whole. That $185,000 is making them whole from not giving them the law enforcement staff a step when they got the big increases last year. So that's taking them actually to where they belong, time and position, the 185. So my request would be to look at all the staff, give them their COLA, plus progress them somewhat through the pay plan. They don't have a step and grade at this point, but give them something else beyond the 1.8%, just to level it out from what you're doing, what may potentially do with the sheriff.
Okay, so let's try this. I'll throw this out. So we've got 185,000. We've got the COLA in there for everyone at 1.8%.
Yes.
Okay, so the sheriff wants to move people through the matrix. If we have that, cut it in half. That's a two-step move through the matrix, is that correct?
Yes, that's
Cut
like
it,
2 steps.
take a one-step move through the matrix.
It'd be about $97,000.
I want to shift that money to everybody else. So they get a one-step move through the matrix. They get their COLA, and the rest of the employees get something more than the 1.8%. Does that make sense? There's a chance to speak up. Go ahead, Nancy.
$100,000 split between 600 employees would be a very small percentage.
But it's still over the 1.8.
So once again, the people who are paying for this are the taxpayers who have lost their businesses, who are still not back to work, who still are suffering the consequences for potentially years to come. I know my family lost out on at least $16,000 that we'll never get back. The governor will never pay for it, all these incentive programs. And so I can't imagine what other people are suffering, and that's just my family. I was blessed to have this job. I didn't take a pay cut. I didn't have any time off. I didn't lose anything. And I think as county, as government employees, I think we should be grateful that we came out of this the way we did. And so I am not in favor of the COLA, of matrix, of anything. And I do understand, I love our employees, and I have suggested some other things that would give them something for 2021. But in good conscience, I cannot tell the taxpayers, I'm sorry that what you've lost, but guess what? You have to pay for these people's raises. So that's just my point.
Bill, do you want to comment?
Yeah, these people's raises and COLA allow us to keep and maintain good people who provide, in my opinion, great services to the people of the county. And at this point in time, the last thing the people of the county need is a diminution of what the county can do on a day-to-day basis and help them. And I don't need demotivated employees. I don't think they're being spoiled or coddled. COLA is keep up with. Keep up with. It's not a raise. And what Dan's suggesting, and further what Chris is suggesting, is, I hate to use the term, but people do all the time, splitting the baby. Saying we can't do everything we'd like to do, but we can do a reasoned amount. Now, I heard some things in what Dan said, but there were a couple things that can't be quantified, and Dina can't put on a spreadsheet, but I think Chris's suggestion is a very good suggestion. And I think people who, whether you're a taxpayer, which we all are anyway, or an employee, will understand what we're doing. I don't want to see any tax increase this year. I don't want to see any foregone taxes used ever. So I think Chris's suggestion will get us there. And I'm not opposed to opening the budget as the year goes on if we find that we have more revenues. We may. It may not. We're in a microcosm here in Kootenai County. We are not Spokane even. I mean, we're influenced, but we're not New York. We're not San Francisco. We're not Seattle. And you never know what the future is going to hold for us. You just don't know it. And see, I say, hey, guys, let's open the budget up again and revisit these things, as a matter of fact, whether it's up or down. If we have to adjust, we have to adjust. So that's.
Yeah, go right ahead, Dan.
I just want to make sure I understand what's being proposed right now under any of these scenarios is predicated on a 0% tax.
That is
rate.
correct.
So, to your point, Leslie, we're not taxing anybody any more than exists in the current budget. What's happening here, and again, I'm speaking specifically to your point, is we're giving up positions that we need to keep it at 0. We're doing everything that we can do in the context of an existing budget without costing a nickel to the taxpayers. And one other thing I want to throw in here, and I can throw another $85,000 into this right now, and that's for that Marine position. We didn't ask for it. And,
For the
you
what?
know,
I didn't hear.
the Marine position that Leslie, I
Yeah,
believe you
yeah.
made that.
A single Marine position isn't worth much, is it?
It's not. If it's not a team, it's not going to do us any good. And so, you know, we're more than happy to give that up as well. But, you know, I need to stay firm on the fact that, you know, retention, and to Bill's point, you know, keeping the best employees we can at no more additional expense to the taxpayers and on the backs of the employees that exist already to fund the matrices. I don't think that's an unfair ask. I don't think that's us being selfish. I just think that's us doing the best we can do to maintain things under the circumstances.
Well, and I appreciate your effort, but I still don't see the majority of the citizens of Kootenai County getting a raise. And you say that taxes, you know, taxes will go up because that depends on valuation. So just saying that, it's still, we have 1.2 in fund balance that we're taking from fund balance. I would like to see some of that stuff come back to taxes because of like the radios. I don't want to see that come out of fund balance every year if it's an ongoing replacement expense. So to continue to use savings every year when we're using, you know, when it needs to be that way. So we're just going to agree to disagree, and it's fine. You don't need to spend any more time trying to convince me.
No.
I have to look at my neighbors. I have to look at the other people of the county who are not getting even a measly 1.8% raise.
Whether it's the sheriff's office, and I know you're getting antsy, so I'll be quick, but whether it's the sheriff's office or the auditor or anybody else in the county, the single greatest, the absolute greatest asset to the county isn't the radios, it's not the cars.
It's the people.
It's the people.
I agree.
And that's what we're talking about here, is maintaining good people, and we're not so far, I'm not hearing 1.5%, I'm not hearing 3%, I'm not hearing anything. I'm hearing people giving up, people working harder, people doing what they gotta do in the context of the existing budget to try to maintain our status with our contemporaries. Coeur d'Alene's going to go through their stuff. I can go and talk about what other people are going to do. It's going to happen. Other places are getting raises. We just have to remain competitive. And finally, and I'm going to shut up right after this, I promise, we didn't follow the pay study to the letter last year. And so to not do what we should be doing now is just exacerbating a problem that should have been handled before COVID got started. That's all I want.
Okay, thank you.
Can we get rid of this Marine deputy? Do you mind if we do that?
If we can keep our matrix. We'll
No.
do our minutes.
Just in
Both
general.
matrices.
So-
Just in general, is that okay?
It's the citizens who live on the waterways who've requested this Marine deputy.
Yeah.
So it's not just me. It's the citizens are asking that their tax dollars be towards a Marine deputy to enforce the new ordinance that was put into place.
I can understand that, but one Marine deputy is not going to make any difference. It's not.
No, but
you
if we
don't- you
start
got two,
now-
You can put a team in. I don't have anybody to put with them. And frankly, you can ask for all the Marine deputies that you want, but if people are going to go to work somewhere else because we're not following our own plan, then that doesn't help either.
So what you're saying is, okay, so you need a team when you deploy, so one isn't enough.
No.
You'd need a second
You
one.
need 2 people.
But leave it for now. I think Leslie has a point here. Let's just keep moving for the moment, okay?
Thank you, sir.
Nancy, did you want to come up? I didn't get on the guns yet. We got $70,000 of guns. Can I have some? I only own one. Seriously, can we do something about this?
Speak up.
If you don't speak up, I'm taking half out. Guys, let's go. This 70,000 keeps coming up all the time for guns.
I know.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, put that aside for a moment. Come on up. Let's go back to the personnel thing, okay? Help me out here. What thoughts do you have?
My thoughts are, if they're willing to give up that $86,000 for the Marine deputy, that added to the other $100,000 from the savings only moving the patrol staff one step, or the sworn staff one step,
Go ahead.
that would give us $185,000 to add to the increase for employees to make for their movement through their pay plan. That would be a little bit more fair.
Sylvia?
So when, I'm thinking like 2.5% would kind of be an ideal spot for the general pay plan, because that's the COLA we recommended, and because it matches what is happening in our community. That was the best. The CPIW, Mountain, all items, really represents Kootenai County and what's happening here. And that difference between the 1.8, and this was factoring the public safety getting 1.8 or 2.5. If we can come up with some of that difference and give at least the staff a 2.5 overall meshed together, I think that goes a long way.
So are you suggesting 2.5 across the board, including KCSO?
No, I'm saying let's figure out how we can keep the CPI index at 1.8, which I think that's where the
Is
board
that for
was.
all employees?
For all
Okay.
employees. But if we had went to a 2.5%, it was like a little over 300, almost 350.
Go ahead.
About $350,000. That seemed more realistic of around the base of what to give the employees overall. When I did research with some of our other communities, like City of Coeur d'Alene, they were initially proposing a 2.5% cost of living. Post Falls was going to do 2% and then do something hopefully in January based on.
You're talking fiscal 21?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. So if we can get the general pay plan to at least between their COLA and any other kind of an increase to about 2.5, I think that would be pretty fair to everybody, because when you look at what the deputies will get, I think it probably
Okay,
a
so
little bit
now-
more depending on what step they're in.
So who are you proposing gets the 2.5?
The general pay plan at least, because when you look at the matrix, they're getting their 1.8 plus their step, which is probably at least that, if not more,
Now, you're talking single step.
single step. Which is half. Yes, which
But
is
you're
half
doing,
of the 1.8.
you're doing a different CPI, one for the sheriffs and one for the general.
Yeah, that's a good,
No, sorry, I confused
That's what I
that
understood you
issue.
to say.
Yes, okay, so do the 1.8% across the board.
Okay?
And try and come up with the difference that gets the staff at least, they get their 1.8% COLA, and the difference to get them to 2.5 would be built into the general pay plan to spread out among the other 500, 600.
okay, I see where you're going. Okay, and for the sheriff, it's 1.8% plus a single step for sworn.
Yes.
Commissioners, would that allow then for an increase for our civilian staff?
Yes, yeah, they're part of the general pay plan, is that correct? Yeah, in the general pay plan. Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts?
Commissioners, I want to say one thing.
You need a microphone.
Yeah, make it quick.
This
so-
this is coming off us at the sheriff's office. The $210,000, the Leslie's Marine deputy, the money for the overtime. I just got to ask, I want everybody to get as much money as they can. But what's coming off of any other elected? I mean, are we contributing to everybody's pay raise? Because we're giving stuff up in the anticipation of supporting our employees.
Go ahead.
Most other electeds haven't gone up 5 to 9% in their budget every single year.
Well, and my answer to that, Leslie, is you guys had a pay study done, and that's what resulted in that, and you still didn't follow that.
Okay, anyway.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'm going to do something here. I want to, Nancy, I'm talking to both Nancys. Remember the gentleman, and I think this is worth pointing out for the benefit of not just everyone in the room, but anybody listening in. Can you recall that little analysis that was done from somebody who asked us to take a 10% cut? Do you remember that? Do you want to come forward and Nancy can pick that up for, can you? Everybody really needs to hear this because, and I'm doing it for anybody listening in as well. Go right ahead, please.
We did a brief analysis for someone who had written in requesting that we do a 10% budget cut. And Nancy and I took a look at it and initially determined that a 10% budget cut off of the entire budget obviously wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't be feasible to begin with, and about half of that is grant funded. So if you take the 10% off of the 49 million approximately, it really came down to about a $50 savings.
Per parcel.
Per parcel, and that's just an average. Obviously, it would probably be skewed toward the commercial, so probably less than that for the average homeowner with a 10% budget reduction off the 49 million.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so to Dan's earlier point, we're going in at 0. I don't think there's any discussion there or any disagreement. You know, the question, and I think Leslie does bring up some good points. You know, there are people who've lost work and whatever. But I don't hear anybody asking for a reduction in services. I didn't hear for the 4,000 or more people who relocated saying, well, I think we'll just go back. Because the demand for services continues to increase. And the population continues to increase, and arguably, depending on who you listen to, I think we're ranked 5th in the nation or thereabouts for percentage increase. So the demand for services continues. The number of new employees is basically proceeding at a less than proportionate rate. So I understand that there are people out of work. I also understand that people, because of the incentive that has been provided, the additional $600 a week, and I get it, that ends at the end of July, I'm having difficulty getting people to come out and do work. So if people are out of work, where are they? And I understand. I've been through 7 recessions in my lifetime, and I've also been through periods of unemployment. So I do get it. But again, population increase, demand for services is increasing. So somehow we have to achieve a balance. And when it comes to increases, and again, I do understand where Leslie's coming from, but over the years, and the building of fund balance has come through the overestimation of expenses, the underestimation of revenue, and largely on the backs of employees as a result. And that's what we tried to do last year in implementing the wage increase. Unfortunately, we can't really do part 2 because we're holding to 0, in essence because we're backed into a corner with the state's initiative. And then again, it's probably only the right thing to do because of the situation we find ourselves in. So I think the proposal that Sylvia's come up with is a reasonable one. I'll throw it back out there for Bill and Leslie.
I agree with Sylvia. I think that's a good.
I'll try to restate it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sylvia. Okay, so what Sylvia is proposing is that everybody get the COLA of 1.8%, that the general pay plan get a differential, I will call it that, to get them up to a 2.5% total. General pay plan, which is your non-sworn as well, Dan, and KCSO gets a 1.8% COLA and a single step through the matrix. So it's really kind of even all the way around, roughly.
I think that's a very, very equitable compromise where everybody. Pardon? We would not oppose that. I think everybody gets to take a huge bite here, and.
And to your earlier point, we hold to 0%, no tax increase.
That's right.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dina, please.
No, so just to add to that, so according to my high-level calculations, I just want to walk through the numbers here. So we're decreasing the loaded jail overtime increase by half. That takes us to 133 deficit. We're taking out the Marine deputy, and we're freezing the sheriff's positions that were outlined in the schedule. That gives us a surplus of 165,764 that could be applied as a general pay plan adjustment. Those resources could be used to bring from 1.8 to 2.5. Is that enough? Do you think that's enough money, Nancy?
If we only give the 0.7% increase to the general pay plan, it would probably be enough. If you want to include the attorneys and chief deputies, it might be a little bit more. I would have to calculate that.
But we can come back with those numbers, but we're getting
then
really
we can-
close by this approach.
Squeezing that in there.
So we forfeited the Marine deputy.
Yes.
Leslie?
There are other new positions here that, given what Leslie said, you could potentially forego these, add that back into the budget, decrease the budget by some of these asks, and then reassess mid-year next year as things ramp up. And like Bill said, with revenues coming on, if you wanted to forego adding some of these people, that's less pain because they're not existing positions. You could decrease your drag on personnel and reassess mid-year and maybe add back.
Yeah, I don't want to forego, some of those positions are long overdue. I mean, district court clerks, 10 years, no additional bodies.
Oh, I
don't-
totally agree. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that this is another option if you wanted to go that direction rather than freezing existing positions, looking at new asks instead.
Yeah, I'm not interested in going there. I mean, I've talked to many people, and I think that those are pretty much needed to keep up with the growth that we're talking about.
So Dan, and I guess this is a question for you, adding a single Marine deputy, if I understood you correctly, doesn't buy us anything.
Except it helps because we can't always hire enough seasonal deputies to make the full team. So having a full-time, that means one less seasonal that needs to be hired.
So our position on this is that we understand that the ordinance is in existence, and we understand that people on the river, there is an issue, and we're doing whatever we can do to include hiring people from other agencies. We have not left them floating, no pun intended, out there. We're doing what we can do, but one Marine deputy is not going to, you need a team. That's how it works.
But once again, with zero full-time Marine deputies, that means you still have to hire the same amount of seasonals. So you
Leslie,
just have to hire less seasonals.
I guess my response to that is this, and it goes back to what Chris was saying. I think he's spot on because growth is here. We're now operating with less positions than we're allotted to fund and keep people that we got. And if we don't keep the people we got, adding another one isn't going to do any good. That's not going to address the problem on the water with just one Marine deputy. We're trying to do what we can do. I realize you're saying, well, it's a step in the right direction. Well, we're taking several steps in the wrong direction by not funding the positions that we need with the specter of all this growth. We're actually operating with less when we need more, but our priority is pay, and that would be how I would answer that. The Marine deputy, I understand the position, but it's just not going to work for us, not with just one position.
Okay,
You need
well-
an army on the river is what you need, and you can't afford that, neither can we, so there's just a big problem.
Point taken. We just agree to disagree. That's okay.
Well, that wasn't the first time, but I appreciate your honesty. Thank you.
We can put it back in for now.
I'm not for all the raises, so it doesn't really matter, what we put in and take out for it. It's, you guys are going to do what you're going to do. I've stated my piece. I haven't changed my mind, and that's just where I'm at. And, it's fine.
Anyone else? I do want to take up one other item. I don't know if I hope I'm not getting off, well, I couldn't be off topic because it's budget. What is it, a capital item, the guns purchases? We have about 70,000 in there. I'm sorry?
Non-capital.
It's non-cap? Oh, I'm sorry.
Is this one up here, Nancy? I'm not seeing it. Is it in the?
It's not an increase, it's just in their overall.
Oh, okay, so that's why I
But
don't
it's
have it
in
listed.
there a lot and repeatedly. It's on a recurring basis.
Sure.
Come right up.
Back, I don't have the data with me, so I apologize. But in 2016, 17, and 18, we averaged about $30,000 in weapon purchases a year. That went up in 19, and it has been steady up since then. We purchased about 100 new guns in 2016, 2018, and 2019. So I'm not sure if there is a replacement schedule for those new guns. We purchased, I believe, 104 new guns in 2019. So I don't know if there's a replacement schedule for those. I think they have $79,000 budgeted this year for weapons. So I don't know if that could come down some or where that is.
Dan, are you going to have a heartache if we take that down in half?
Not if you fund both steps of the matrix.
Oh, stop.
Oh, yeah. Dream on.
So there is a.
You're going to take on Putin next.
There is a replacement schedule, but I'm not the expert on that, and I don't want to misspeak. I can get that information for you. You know, how much was it again? $10,000?
79,000.
But I thought it was an increase we were talking about and not the whole thing. I'm not sure.
No, the 79, I believe, is the entire amount. Is that correct?
There's no increase. It was increased in 2019 and just stayed high because we.
But we're not purchasing to that level every year. Is that correct? So we're spending $70,000 every year on guns?
Yes, sir. But it's more than just guns.
Okay,
It
so
is.
then how do we rationalize reducing it, I guess is what I'm getting at. Are we over purchasing?
If
Somebody
you're
help me out
asking
here.
me, I'm going to say no. And with all due respect, Nancy, you know, you're an Archies, and I can't speak to that.
Right.
And that's fair, you know, I think that they expect you to be an Archies. But the bottom line here is that if you want an answer, I'm going to give you one.
Yeah,
But
would
I'm
you?
not going to shoot from the hip either.
No, I don't want you to shoot from the hip, but I think we might be able to make the case for maybe potentially taking it down by half.
If you fund both those matrices steps, I bet we, no, in all seriousness, we'll look at it and we'll work.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Dina, are you okay? Are you tracking us here? Are we okay?
I'm going to get with Nancy.
Okay.
And we'll calculate the numbers and we'll send you an update and I'll send it out to the group so for visibility so everybody sees it. I think we made some good progress today. And I appreciate you throwing this meeting in at the last minute. I think it helps us to have
thank you.
breathing room before the final analysis. I think everybody's willing to work together still and I think that's a really good sign.
Oh, and what, yes, Sylvia, please.
From an HR perspective,
You need a microphone, sorry.
from an HR perspective, we would just like clarification on what the decision was on the frozen position so that between auditor, us, and the sheriff's office, which would be affected by it, we can then work towards getting those froze and not continuing the recruitment process on it.
So my concern, though, is I think I saw one ECO position frozen, but they had asked for 2 more. So I would think that they would need all of them, but that's just my memory, what I remember from early on in the budget process, so.
The new ones are taken out.
Right, the new ones are taken out, but if you're freezing an existing one, when they said that they needed 2 more besides all their existing ones, I guess
I
is
think
where.
there was some, go back to. Okay,
It's at the bottom, bottom of your page.
okay. So there's 3 opens here. This is the one that was over 100 days. These 3 are still open or in the process of being hired.
Yeah, and that one, I believe was as well in background or potentially
Chris.
being considered, but.
I think we don't need to get into this now.
Yeah, okay, we
I
may
would
be getting
just-
into too much detail,
Yeah,
but,
yeah. You
I
can
would
work-
just
Hold
say,
off at this point.
You can
on
work with
freezing.
Dina and figure out.
yeah, you guys
Yeah.
work together, and then, because we do have another meeting, and we can take it up then. And we've got another meeting coming up in 6 minutes, but 2 things I wanted to take up. Dan, it's something I neglected to mention earlier, and I guess this is mostly for the benefit of KCSO. An increase in the COLA also moves the matrix, and we have to bear that in mind. So your matrix is moving with the increase in the COLA, so just bear that in mind. The other thing, and I'm going to ask Dina to comment on this because it's the latest, if you want to call it the latest concern, if you will, over the property tax relief. Would you comment on that? Specifically, what I'm asking Dina to address is that while the governor or his aides have come up with a program for property tax relief, there's no reason to believe that U.S. Treasury has officially blessed this action. Dina, would you comment, please?
What I will say is that Leslie was kind enough to put an agenda item on next week's elected officials meeting. We will have Ide Bailey on the phone, and we will have our COVID team, who are experts at reading this government documentation. We've looked at the Treasury guidance. We've looked at the Treasury FAQs page, which is not authoritative guidance, which is what the state appears to be pointing towards as the reason for doing this particular tax relief scheme, if you will. So we're not comfortable, our auditors aren't comfortable. We can still take zero,
Precisely.
but the mechanics of it are not clear. The decision by the board needs to be made next week. That's the deadline. Basically, the way it works and the way I understand it at a very high simplistic level is the state would reimburse us for what we paid to law enforcement at a certain rate. That in turn would be prorated against the total pool of money. We would be given that money as a reimbursement, and then we would be compelled to take that money and refund taxpayers with it.
Go ahead.
So if it's not legal, then we would have to take foregone the following year to take it back.
Thank you.
So that is it in a nutshell. I'm probably not stating it precisely.
That's all right. Good
But
enough.
that precise speech will be provided next week at the
Good
elected
enough.
officials.
And I'll contact Barry McHugh because he's also very up on this, and he may have additional insights.
Okay. Public comment? Hearing none. Good meeting. Thank you, everyone. The time is 11:57. Meeting adjourned. Next meeting next week. Is that right, Dina?
Yes, next Wednesday with Alliance, and then next Thursday, and that'll be it.
Thank you.